With us today is Matt Klinger, owner of TelNetPC, former military veteran, transplant to our community, but now committed, and this is home. And welcome, Matt Klinger.
Good morning. I'd like to start off with a tough question. I want you all to imagine in your head setting for yourself the biggest goal you've ever set for your life. This goal is going to take a couple of months, maybe a couple of years to accomplish. You're going to put in a lot of work and a lot of effort. But at the end of this goal, you're going to fail. Are you going to do it?
No.
Probably not. But let me ask you this. Let's say you try again, but this time you accomplish the biggest success you've ever achieved in your life. Are you going to do it now?
Yes.
Good morning. My name is Matt Klinger. I own TelNetPC. And this is my story on how I found success as an entrepreneur by making it up. Okay, so my story begins in 2012. I just finished my Air Force career as a cop for 8 years. I loved it, but I needed a change. I wanted to feel like the effort I was putting into was going to translate into the value I was receiving. So I decided I was going to be a business owner. I set myself a 10-year goal and quit the Air Force and went out on my way. What I found out very quickly is that without experience or without an education, you don't have very many options. So I applied for 35 different positions. I had 2 interviews out of those 35 applications, one of which I was very fortunate. A gentleman who was the store manager for Office Depot, who is now a very close friend and a business mentor of mine, saw the potential and he gave me a chance. He hired me as an entry-level manager with no experience and no education. So I set for myself a lot of goals at that point. I knew I could teach myself the skills I needed while working through Office Depot as a manager to become a successful entrepreneur. Within 12 months, I was promoted to assistant store manager, and then so I set my sights even further this time. Within 6 months, an opportunity came up, and I was promoted to a store manager in Grand Forks, North Dakota. With little experience now, just 18 months as a store manager, management experience with a retail corporation, I didn't have the foresight to see the problems that I was getting into. This was right around the time of the Office Depot Office Max merger, and the store that I was taking over, the entire management team was let go because they didn't want to merge from Office Max over to Office Depot. So I get to the store and my team on a $15 million a year store was just about 10 part-time high school students. So my job was to go in there with just 18 months of management experience, never hired a manager before in my life. I had to hire, build, train the entire management infrastructure, and then turn this legacy Office Max store into an Office Depot store. It took 6 months and I failed miserably. Sales had declined almost 50%. The regional manager asked me to step down or they would let me go. It was a tough lesson for me. But another lesson I learned is never burn a bridge. So I came back to Rapid City. They were fortunate enough to send me back to Rapid City. I licked my wounds. They hired me back at the same Office Depot store. Once again, entry level, no experience, got to work your way back up. So I took the opportunity and I started over. I worked back at Office Depot for a couple of years, and then I found an opportunity through the grapevine with TechNet Corp, which was a small private computer repair and IT networking store. The owner of that business was becoming a serial entrepreneur, and he had just taken on some more business opportunities, a franchise and 2 restaurants, and he was expanding his scope, so he hired me as his manager and put me in his store. He didn't give me very much guidance because he was focusing on his, so once again I had a lot of tough lessons that I had to teach myself. Whereas with a corporate retail store, the lessons, they essentially give you the information you need to be successful. We put the planograms out here, this is the pricing, customers will come to you, they take care of the marketing, you just make sure the doors are open and the employees are there to work, essentially. In a private business now I learned that's not the case. You have to provide those manuals. You have to schedule the employees. You have to set the payroll standards. So it was an amazing experience through this next year then where I managed the store basically as the store owner, but I didn't get quite the experience of an actual business owner. So this is now 3 years into my goal. And at the end of 2017, November 2017, the previous business owner got into a lawsuit with one of the franchise owner even though he won, he got overextended, filed bankruptcy, and had to close all of his businesses. He turned 2 restaurants back over to a partner he was with, and then he closed my store and then another restaurant that he was working on at that point. So 3 years into my goal, with a lot of failed experiences and a good conversation with a close friend, I decided this was my opportunity. All I needed to do was just keep going forward. So I created a corporation the next week. I hired back our 4 employees. We literally got our start in what's called the Garage. It's a temporary business location downtown Rapid City. It's phenomenal. You just rent the space. We brought our laptops with us, our phones, and we started calling all of our previous customers. Said, hey, we're making a transition. We're going forward. We're going to figure this out. We'll let you know when we get there. We continued to work out of there until opportunities just started happening for us then at this point. We were able to get back in the exact same location that was then abandoned by the previous owner, and so we just signed a new lease, took over all the equipment, all of our stuff was still there. We opened the doors again in the exact same business. I saved up money over the next couple of months. We got new signage. We were able to work with the phone companies, and this was probably the biggest success strategy, is we kept the same phone number that was with that business for 13 years. So customers that have been with us 3-5 years ago are still calling us on the number they had, so that was a huge win for us. And we started in December, just trail end of December, we opened our doors as our new business. So you can imagine now, brand new business owner with this big opportunity, I had a lot of challenges as well, because now I had to transition a business, rebrand it, and continue on with the customer retention and then new customer acquisition going forward into the last year. So there were a lot of challenges, and I learned a lot of successes along that journey as well. So like I said, one of the biggest challenges up front was rebranding. The previous store had a 13-year reputation in this town. They were probably the 2nd largest computer repair store in town. We had a lot of business customers, and to them, their perspective was one day they had support, the next day we were closed. So it kind of scared off a couple of our customers. 2 of our business customers fired us, and just a couple of, probably a handful of our residential customers let us go. So I had to rebrand, kind of re-strategize then going forward with a similar business model where they can expect the same level of service, try to keep the price points the same while I figured out the cash flow portion and everything else. So I bootstrapped this business startup. We didn't have any funding. I had 0 debt when we started it up. So the cash flow piece was a huge challenge for me, especially up front in the beginning, because without any prior experience with that, it was just a huge undertaking, if you could imagine. Some of the other challenges we had was, I guess on just my portion now as a business owner, was the business owner things that they did. You know, I had no clue what a business owner did before, so I had to apply for taxes, insurance, all different kinds of insurance I found out was required, all different kinds of regulations. And I taught myself, again, how to find those resources that will help you learn what you need to do. And there are lots of people in Rapid City that are willing to help. There's some amazing organizations. So some of the keys to success, I feel like that really helped along this entire journey. Number 1 was my team. We built such a strong team that year that I managed the store that we were a team environment. When we closed, we sat down and collectively decided, sure, we can keep going, we can do this. Our opportunities are there. It's going to take a lot of work, it's going to take some agility, but we'll figure it out and we'll get there. And we retained 100% still to this day of the original team. So that was a huge win for me because that translated into our customer success, our customer satisfaction, you know, same people just moving forward. Our customers was the second biggest piece to our people success. One of my strategies that I've always focused on, that I've learned through my years of experience, is managing the customer experience. I feel like a business owner really needs to drill down and identify total process from start to finish, all the touch points when a customer finds you, reaches out to you, provides you or tells you their request, you provide the service till you close out and pay, and then even the follow-up. Every single point, I want to make it the most convenient and simple way for my customers, and I want to reduce any friction or pain points along that process. And we've done that very successfully, and our customers were extremely happy when we called them and said, hey, we're going forward again, because they didn't want to change support service again. They loved us. So that was a big piece. Customer satisfaction, it's not a cliche for me, it is my business model. It's completely how I wrap everything around what I do. Another key to success was hiring experts to do what they do best. So I realized in the beginning I had to come up with a marketing strategy, a branding strategy. I had to come up with a corporation, file a whole bunch of things with legal stuff. So I had to make the decision, is this worth my time or is this worth my money? And I could spend the time and I could teach myself what I needed to learn, but I would spend a lot more time to kind of get half of what an expert would be able to do at a fraction of the price. So one of my keys to success is hire experts to do what they do best. You'll find that your output that you get down the road is much better than the money you would have saved if you would have just done it yourself. I think as a business owner, I need to be focusing on what I do best, and that's bringing customers in my store. So let the experts do what they do best. And then last but not least, the key to success is you have to have a burning passion for what you do. I wanted to be a business owner, so when this opportunity came up, it wasn't an option. You know, I was like, can we do it? Yeah, there's going to be risks, but we're going to push through and we're going to do it. So having a burning passion for what you do, because that's going to get you through the tough times. And as all you entrepreneurs know, when you start up, there's going to be tough times. Okay. So let's talk about what does TelNetPC do. So as my business, what actually do we do now? We are the technology customer service as a service. We are support after the sale. So you can buy a computer online, you can buy a computer anywhere. You can buy a phone from Verizon, you can buy a phone literally anywhere, but when that stuff breaks, you're going to need somebody to call. And what the market has created for us was a really neat niche where we are American-based, local customer service that understand how all things connected. If you look at my logo, it's a network, it's a web, and all things are connected, and when they work well, everything works. So we understand when something works or doesn't work, there's something wrong in the network. And we are able to help customers on any device. They love it when we're able to help them post a picture on Facebook, upload or download an iTunes update. We can replace hard drives, monitors, anything as far as computer relations goes, their tablets. We'll set up a smart TV for our customers. There's virtually nothing we can't do. Printers, as far as the network goes, and then as far as businesses go, we have a good solid dozen business customers that we manage their servers, firewalls, data backup, data protection, security requirements, everything. I have a 45-year engineer who's been working on computers forever. So this guy's absolutely brilliant. So we literally have all the tools we need to provide full, all-around technical support. So my challenge this year that I foresee for myself is going to be organic growth. Because what I found now, not being from Rapid City, being prior Air Force cop, I had a pretty small network. So when it came down to it, I realized that my growth perspective is really going to be limited to who I knew, and I didn't know very many people in Rapid City. So the last couple of months I've been doing more networking events. I hired a marketing agency who is managing the branding and piece for me, and she's been doing absolutely amazing. And so my strategy this year is just going to be organic growth, getting new customers in the door. Then I think 3 to 5 years I'd like to just build the management infrastructure for my team and my store so that essentially it's going to start running itself. My 10-year goal has always been I wanted to own a software development company, so now it's kind of on the back burner, but it's going to be a near tangent where I can build the infrastructure for my store and then go down that path as well. So just setting up the infrastructure for that for the next couple of years. So that has been my entrepreneurial journey as I have made things up along the entire way. Lots of failed experiences and lots of learned opportunities. In closing, if there's anything I can offer from my experience, it's never give up. If you find yourself facing an opportunity where you might fail or you might grow, I strongly urge you to do it. Thank you.
Now we get to ask Matt some questions about what he's experienced and how that might relate to what you're experiencing. So in this area, Deanna's on one side of the room, I'll be on the other. We have a microphone. Please introduce yourself and what company you're with, and then ask the question. If you have comments or suggestions, we would ask that you take those offline and give them to Matt individually. And if Matt has a question that he doesn't feel comfortable talking about in front of the group, he can obviously take that offline with you as well. All right, so we'll open it up to questions.
I'm going to urge you to keep the questions simple because I'll make it up if I don't know.
I'll start with a question, Matt. Deanna, Becket, character coach. You mentioned, or I heard that you mentioned something about visiting with a friend when you got to a point and got stuck and you didn't know where to go forward. A lot of us, I included, feel stuck at sometimes in our business, and not just like changing, like you did a major change. What did you do, or what do you do when you get to that stuck point?
That is an excellent question. So I have found myself at many of those points now throughout this last year. And what I've actually learned is the best strategy, again, is hire the experts to do what they do. So I've actually hired Leah, who is a business coach, to kind of help me. When I found myself just overwhelmed, I hired her for some coaching, and we found that I was doing the job of my employees, and I wasn't focusing on what I should have been doing. So she helped me restructure, I guess, my own thought process and internal job requirements and who was responsible to do what. She helped me do a in-store meeting. We kind of restructured some things, and then we continued going forward as well. So when I talked to my friend, she was a successful entrepreneur, and she had gone through some of these things that I was about to experience, and it was just her belief in me at that point. So find somebody that can help you push through, and then find somebody that can believe in you. Really helps tremendously. Thank you.
All right, I'll throw out a question. Gordon Decker, Shield Financial.
Yes, Gordon.
You mentioned your veteran status.
Yes.
How did that relate to you owning a business, and what would you say to other entrepreneurs that are veterans?
Excellent question. So I was an Air Force cop for 8 years. So how does that translate into my entrepreneurial journey? Well, it taught me what I did not want to do. Most people don't like cops. Military members don't like cops as well. When you show up at the door, it's not for a comfortable experience. They did something wrong. You need something from them. And sometimes it had to be more aggressive than just a simple conversation. What I found is after 8 years, I loved my job. I was the controller. I was an emergency controller, and I absolutely loved it. I had control of the entire base. I knew where all my people were, and I could move them around. But at the end of the day, I'd work 12 hours, and we just got to the next day. I wasn't building long-term growth, long-term value. And I felt like inside that's what I was looking for. And I actually worked with Paul Barnes, who's a voc rehab counselor. We did an analysis type of thing, and he said your personality traits really, really point towards being an entrepreneur. You need to be in control, you need to build value. So I decided that at that point, military was a great experience. It definitely taught me a lot of lessons. People lessons has been my #1 skill as a police officer. I can read a person's body language, I can communicate with them, I'll understand their objectives without them telling me, and I'll help them walk towards the objective. So I learned a lot. I'm very grateful with my experience in the military, but that wasn't a lifelong decision for me.
Marie Strang, Edward Jones. I guess this is 2 questions. The first is you mentioned that you've been doing a lot of networking.
Yes.
And I'd like you just to share kind of what you shared with me yesterday about why you're doing that networking.
Okay.
Because it really ties into the customer service aspect of your business. And then the other question, the other part of that is, how have those connections helped you personally and professionally?
Excellent. Very good. Very, very good question. So thank you, Marie. So like I said, about 6 months ago, I determined that my potential growth was very limited to who I knew. I wasn't comfortable with the networking. I'm naturally just an internal introvert, and I'm not the type of person that can cold call, go knocking on doors. I can't just walk up to somebody in a meeting, say, hi, I'm Matt. And I determined that networking was the biggest piece that I was missing. Again, this was another comfort zone challenge for me. Fortunately, at this time, Mark Schreiner with Print Market invited me to come to another networking group. It's called Business Networking International. It's one of the largest networking agencies in the world. You pay a lot of money to be in this group, and then you actively participate every single week. So I learned a lot of lessons about networking from this group, and in 6 months, I've just started evolving. One, more just getting comfortable speaking to people about my business, what I was working towards, and then 2, just finding the opportunities. Once you start building trust and rapport with customers, they're going to be more inclined to send business your way. So to answer then the second portion of your questions, how have the connections that I've been building through networking helping me? It's absolutely unbelievable how an opportunity will present itself when and where you don't anticipate it. You'll think, why should I go to this chamber mixer? It's not going to be a big fit for me. I don't foresee it being positive. You end up going, and then you meet somebody who has an exact need for what you're looking for, or they know somebody, a connection that's going to get you to the next step on where you're going. So what I found through networking is just the unlimited amount of possibilities. Since BNI, it has just snowballed for me. I've met so many tremendous people. I mean, people I would never get to meet outside of my internal realm, and it's just been through networking. I'm now part of 2 chambers, young professionals group, BNI, so I'm just meeting more and more people. So one of my questions that I ask then is what makes people want to come to me as a service provider? And that's the piece then that I translate into communication, into our store processes, and any of these networking events. I don't go to their cell, I literally go to meet them. That is my sole objective. I want to get to know who they are. And I'm a good person. Another cop skill that I learned is remembering people's names. I'll see somebody that I met a year ago and remember their name, I'll remember their computer, and it just wows people. Wow, you remember me, you remember my computer, and I'll be able to pick up exactly where we left off. I could probably do this with 80–90% of my customers. When they walk in my door, I'll know their name. And I'm just, building that people portion, because Rapid City is a very small, close-knit market. I found that out. And what I've understood is when people are in market for a service, any given service, one of yours, one of mine, whatever the case is, they either know somebody from their past year's experience, or they know somebody who is going to know. And they're going to ask for the referrals. So networking is 100% about building relationships and not about selling. That's my strategy. Did that answer your 2 questions?
That's what I wanted you to get to.
Thank you, Marie.
Yeah.
Good question.
So I have a follow-up question to that.
Yes, ma'am.
When you look at business succession and basically replacing yourself, so then are you looking to hire another cop that has those same skills to remember names and computers?
Yeah, very, very good question. I appreciate you bringing that up, because that right now is my biggest challenge. Like internally, trying to wrap my mind around this, just me as a person, I'm a natural overanalyzer. I have to think about every single thing from every point, every opportunity, how it's going to grow. Another strategy that I've used before is called the, they call it in the military, it's the after-action review. And I'm trying to remember the civilian term, it's like the morgue review, or so if, for example, your endeavor or your business fails, what caused that failure? And you strategize to prevent those things. So that's where I'm over analytical on this, is bringing in a person. What I've found, I've hired dozens and dozens of people, but it's hard to hire an entrepreneur. You can't find them. And then if you do find somebody, a salesperson, just finding the right drive with the right, strategies, just the right mindset. So one of Matt, my store manager from Office Depot, said you always hire personality. Skills can be taught, but you can't teach personality. So I'll know essentially when I find that person, and that opportunity will present itself, and it's going to be somebody that's driven and strategic and wants an opportunity to grow for themselves. They want to learn the lessons that I've gone through, and that's who I'm going to seek out to find. Whether that's a cop, I'm not sure. Could be a banker. I mean, it could virtually be anybody. Just somebody that wants to work towards a bigger value. They see the end game, the potential in mind, and they want to work towards it. So that's how I'm going to screen. But it's a challenge, because that's not something I can implement. I can't say I'm going to do this in the next 3 months. I'm going to need this, so it's not something I can plan for. I'm just going to have to make it up when I find the person.
Hi, Matt. Mitch Nightingale with Ascent Innovation. So you talked a little bit about how you have an actual process for managing the customer experience.
Correct.
And that's something that is definitely sought after. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
It's an obsession. Very simply. So good question, Mitch. A process or an obsession? It's probably an obsession. So you just literally have to put yourself in that customer's perspective from the very beginning. The sales strategy is economics. They have a need, you have a supply. It's when the market meets that those two, that sale is made essentially then, or that connection. So managing the customer experience is just always being open and receptive to customers, and I've done this through body language essentially. Anytime I have a conversation with a customer, anytime one of my employees is having a conversation with a customer, anytime my employees are on the phone with a customer and I feel that conversation is working into some friction, I'll observe, and then once they're done with that, I'll change directions, unless it's something urgent that I need to. So that's one strategy piece that I do, is constantly coaching on my expectation on that. And then leading by example in store is a big piece. So, you know, sometimes we have to have uncomfortable conversations like, I'm sorry, your computer just died and you just lost your 2 gigs of baby pictures. You know, they're gone. There's nothing we can do to recover those. So, you know, just obsessing with every single little detail, I think, is the best process. So just listen for any point a customer has a friction or an uncomfortable experience. A good book to read on this is going to be Ken Blanchard, Raving Fans. I think that's the book that I read that just blew my mind around that concept, because customer success is your strongest marketing piece. When customers love your service, they're not going to shop around for other services. You know, so I took that opportunity and I read that book 7 or 8 years ago, and it's just been something I've incorporated in every single piece, remembering customer names, you know, so thank you, Mitch. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Obsess. You got to obsess with it.
So Matt, you actually have a pretty specific time frame and expectation for your employees when they're yesterday you talked about you know exactly what needs to be completed each day and you prioritize that, and you're pretty transparent with your employees about the expectation that if we tell a customer it's going to get done in this amount of time, it's going to be done by then or sooner.
Perfect.
Right?
Yep, I
Can
see
you
your
elaborate
question.
on that?
Yes, thanks, Marie. Excellent. So she elaborated what I should have said. So in my store, I know my business services. I understand through experience what my customers' expectations are. So when they bring in a piece of their device, a hardware, a computer, a phone, whatever the case is, they have some expectations that they don't translate to me. I have to understand, and then I have to exceed those expectations. So you can take that mindset and essentially understand your own business model, where you say, this is the service I provide. I'm perceiving that my customer expects this, this, and this. So for me, the 2 things that I manage most strongly are time expectations. A customer needs to know how long it's going to take so they can plan appropriately. If we have a business customer without their computer, they can't go days without that computer. They're losing sales, they're losing information, they can't be at work. So the time piece is huge, and then the budget. They have to know, is it worth the expense to fix it, or should we just start over? Is it time for a new replacement part? So managing those expectations, I feel, has truly delivered consistent success for us. You know, and it's rare now. If a customer calls me and says, hey, I'm checking on the status of my computer, I get angry. Like, that is not acceptable. We didn't communicate, we did not manage that customer expectation. They don't know what the time frame is. They're calling because they're afraid if we have that computer for a week, it's going to be exorbitant expensive. They don't know what's going on, they're afraid that we might charge them a lot of money. You know, so I translate to them, that's not the case. We ran into an unexpected issue, we're trying to work through it and come to the best conclusion to give you the best way to go. But it's not acceptable when a customer calls me anymore and says, what's going on? So just manage it. Does it make more sense?
Sure.
Did that answer that, Marie?
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Excellent question.
Okay, I'll ask you another one.
Yes, sir.
You talked about the importance of training and development for you and your staff. How do you see that right now going forward? What are you focused on for training and development for yourself and for your staff?
Excellent question. Training and development, I actually think I'm going to be bundling it with our next new hire, essentially. So I'm trying to figure out where I can best place a new hire. Do I need somebody to help manage the bench, or do I need somebody to help with my engineer? You know, once we bring on more business customers, I'm going to need another engineer then to go out there and help them. Something that we do successfully in store is communal knowledge. So it's actually fun. Every job essentially is a project for all of us. We all have our skill sets that we bring to the table, and it happens a lot of times. I like to start at the bottom tier. I give it to my technician, and I have a dynamic group. My technician is 19 years old, and then Doug, my engineer, is 68 years old. So you can imagine just huge dynamic. It's fun managing that age difference. That's rhetorical. But teenagers are tough. But he's super brilliant. So I like to start with him, because he's the primary focus. He can actually, I mean, he grew up with technology. 4 years old, he was tearing apart computers and all this stuff. He knows so much more than I do. And then when he comes into something that he doesn't know how to fix, or he doesn't know how to put it within those expectations, that's when I take over and I say, all right, I need you to do this, this, and this. Or a lot of times I'll say, what about this? What about this? Have we tried this? What do you think about this? And we turn it into an open communication because in any scenario there's so many different paths we could go, so many different options that we could choose. So I got to keep in mind, what is the customer looking for and how do we best work towards that? And then a lot of times when there's stuff I don't know, I call Doug. He's my engineer. He saves me so many times. I'm like, Doug, before I try this, what am I going to be looking at? He's like, you don't worry, you're going to mess up this, this, and this. So we basically, I mean, we bundle our experience to teach each other, ultimately. And then hiring the next person is going to basically be another team player that's going to help everybody all around. So that's, I guess, my strategy then on group development.
With SDSU in our counseling program, how do you work with your self-care and not getting so burnt out with your job, and how do you do that for your employees as well? What is the expectations of time versus burnout?
Work-life management? I don't. Well, we're 1 year in business, so it's a struggle for me right now. It's something that I've found. Something I've just realized here recently is I have to value my time and my money above all else, because it's come to the point now, you know, I've built this relationship with a large customer base, but it's to the point where they want to call me for their fixes when I have an entire team that I hire, train, and urge to help these customers out. So that's a transitional piece that I'm working on now, is handing off the customers to my team as their primary focus, and then when it's something most urgent that needs to be fixed right away, please call me. So work-life management right now is just transitioning the customer expectations, where I've built it successfully, and now it's kind of bottlenecking me as well. And then just basically forcing myself to take time for myself, you know, whenever I can. At least once or twice a month, I'll take a couple days, I'll unplug and just unwind and refocus. Good question.
So you mentioned that you almost bankrupted Office Depot.
Correct. It was,
which is a hard thing to admit, right?
It was tough.
But looking back on that experience, what do you think you took away from that has actually made you more successful in this year building a company, a bankrupt company from the ground up?
So excellent question. So I was mid-20s as age goes, had a 1-year-old baby at the point, had to move my entire family up there to this economy where you couldn't hire. This was in the middle of the oil boom as well. So any person, I couldn't compete with $60 an hour. That's why I couldn't hire anybody. You know, so the biggest lesson I've learned from that, and it took a long time to really digest that for me, because I wanted to be a store manager. I really did. I worked hard towards it. But two things is, one, really think things through and understand what you're getting into, and know what you're going to have to put in the effort to get to that goal. So for me, it's just being more analytical on how it will play out and if it's going to be worth my time or not.
Before the 1 Million Cups started, I overheard you say, you know, this is the biggest group that you presented in front of, but I see amazing skill, I hear it. And in your long-term strategy, I mean, just the business experience and the strategies and everything like that, in your long-term strategy, have you ever considered, you know, writing a book and speaking about your successes? Because I can hear that.
You see it. You know, that's a very interesting question. Nobody knows this, but I actually have a psychologist that I go to two times a month, and I have him challenge me. I want him to challenge my presuppositions. I want him to challenge my stereotypes. I want him to challenge me at so many different mental levels. And what we work towards is basically evolving, because what my strategy that I'm working towards is, how do I build $1 million business if I've never done it? You don't know what you don't know. And there's things that I have to teach myself. And now that I have a full year of success as a business owner, I am crazy, but I'm headstrong into building and building and building. And I need to understand that there's going to be a balance, that I need to teach myself and learn a whole lot of new skills. But what's interesting is he told me I'm in the wrong career field. I need to be like a life coach or something, because similar thing, we're able to have these conversations, and a lot of time I'm teaching him new things, you know, and different strategies and stuff. So yes, to answer your question directly, yes, I have thought about writing a book. About what? I'm not sure. I'll make something up, I'm sure. But I think that would be tremendous, absolutely tremendous. I'm actually a very avid reader. I have probably 250 self-help books, and I've taken the best strategies from all of those and I've put them into practice, and they do work. You know, so that is an option. And then speaking, it's uncomfortable, I hate it, but I'm good at it, you know, like I can come up here and speak, and so it might be a natural skill set. I just have to push myself through that comfort zone challenge. So maybe in the foreseeable future, I got to build my business first, you know, because I want that experience, you know. I think having that experience just makes it easier to talk to. So that's what I'm working towards.
Tony Stevens with SDSU, you recommended, or you said you had read a lot of self-help books and self-care books. Can you talk about some of the ones that were most influential to you?
Oh, absolutely. There's so many of them. So many. If you're ready for a long list. Darren Hardy is one of my favorite authors. He wrote the book Compound Effect. He taught me that you have to begin with the end in mind. So set the goal first, and then you have to trick yourself into working towards that. So he said, imagine yourself on a skyscraper, there's a single plank, and at the other end is $10. Would you walk across the plank to get that? No, probably not. But if that plank was on fire and your kid was on the other side, you're going to be running across that plank. So you can trick yourself into the motivation into accomplishing that goal. So begin with the end in mind, trick yourself to get there. So Darren Hardy is an excellent one. I'm reading one right now. It's Grant Cardone, the 10X rule. So take your biggest goals and now multiply that by 10. Think about the effort that you have to put into that goal, and now multiply your effort by 10. He said a lot of people don't accomplish goals. 80% of New Year's resolutions fail in 5 weeks because people don't truly anticipate the amount of effort they put in to accomplishing that goal. So if you can trick yourself into anticipating 10 times the effort, you're going to be more likely to hit a goal. Another book that I'm reading is, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but it's Turn This Ship Around. This gentleman was a Navy captain. He managed a submarine. They gave him the Navy's worst performing submarine. And if you can imagine being stuck with a team of 150 people underwater, and you have to turn this ship around. He, through 6 months of one-on-ones, coaching, understanding his people, and changing the entire strategy, turned it from the worst performing ship into the Navy's best performing ship with the exact same people. Another book that translates to that is Who. Your problems aren't problems, they're people problems. So you got to understand who. So another excellent book is Jim Collins, From Good to Great. Tremendous book. I absolutely strongly recommend that one. And then some of even the antique books, the really good ones. So from the beginning, 7 Habits by Covey. So we've all read that one. How to Win Friends and Influence People has been one of my favorite books in the beginning. That's probably one of my longest lifelong lessons, is to be successful in any endeavor. He gave an example of an engineer, but this translates to anybody. Your success is going to come down to 15% technical skill, 85% people skill. And I learned that in the military, and it translated very, very quickly. People skills is where I needed to learn. So that was a good one. Napoleon Hill. What was it? Think and Grow Rich. Yep, very, very good one. Think and Grow Rich. So, I mean, there's tons of them. There's so many of them. But is that a good list? Good starting point?
I think you remember all of them. It's
right?
Great.
Oh, that was great. Bethann, Baffuto with Isagenix. You mentioned just quickly in passing that in 10 years, a 10-year goal you had was software development.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of curious about that. I used to work for a software development company years and years and years ago. So you must have a vision in your mind, you know, or is it a inventor, a sense, and you know, what is behind that? And could you elaborate on that just a little bit?
Very, very good question. So my 10-year goal was to build a software development company, and it's not because I enjoy coding. I absolutely hate it. I tried 3 years to teach myself JavaScript, and I couldn't do it. But my business and entrepreneurial analytical point said that is the way to go. So if you understand the market is getting away from computers and it's going towards smartphones. Billions and billions of devices, billions of users are using smartphones. Applications then, as a service that you can provide to anybody, you launch it on one market and your customer base is in the billions of people. I provide that as a free service to any customer. And I then capitalize off of advertising. So have you ever heard of the app, an example is Flappy Birds? It was a very addictive game, and it was a firework kind of thing. It was absolutely phenomenal, his story, but he creates this game in college and puts it out on the market, not anticipating it to do anywhere near as successful as it was. And in its peak, it was making $50,000 a day in advertising revenue. So if you understand the advertising revenue around social media, the marketing, the apps and everything, you have a free app. That app company makes money by every ad that they post in front of you. So if they make 1 cent per app, or 10 cents per click or whatever, you're providing that free to customers. And then if you create an addictive game, your market is just going to explode. So for me at that point, it wasn't something that I wanted to do because I enjoyed app development. I just see it as a huge opportunity. If you can create an addictive game, and now being a business owner, the strategy is you hire a graphic psychologist, you understand an addictive psychologist, and you can literally hire 2 or 3 coders and create a highly addictive game that you put out for free on the market. So it's a strategy. It's not a passion. We'll see if that plays out.
J.D. Henderson with Wrangle Construction Company. You mentioned a child.
Yep.
Can you describe your scenario for balancing the very heavy schedule that you talked about with being a parent?
Excellent question. So a little bit more information on that. I'm now a single dad. I have 50-50 custody. My son is 5 years old. There's actually a second child, my 10-year-old ex-stepdaughter. So I have a great relationship with my ex-wife, and I kept the stepdaughter. I've raised her now a total of 8 years of her life. So in my house, she still has a room. She's part of my family. I have every other week custody with my son, and as many days as I can, I get her as well, to keep the family going. So a strategy for work-life balance is, it's a really tough struggle right now. I was talking to Marie with this because right now I'm in the infancy stage of my business where I know it's requiring a lot of energy from me just to continue this tremendous momentum we've been going. And then when I get home, I have to unwind or I have to continue with work. And then I got this 5-year-old who's just bouncing around, unbelievable, but I can't sacrifice that. And I've made it my absolute priority that when the kids are there, they are my focus. I have to put work down and spend the time with them because I'm not going to get this time back with him. And he is my world. My heart revolves around this kid, both of them. But my boy is, he's my buddy, So I won't sacrifice the time with him. I'll put my work down, and if it has to wait a day, it's going to wait a day. I've actually struggled with that question. I wasn't sure how to answer it. I'm a humble person, and it's tough to ask for something, and I'm not a big person to ask for help. So I guess I would ask for a small ask, and just shop local. Any opportunity you get, think about if you have to purchase something, there's a family out there that you can help support. It might be a little bit more expensive that you can buy online, but you'll get a better value for it. Because local companies live and breathe by their local customers. We really do. So my big ask or small ask is just shop local, and referrals. Refer people to local businesses because it helps our economy grow. It's so tough. I worked for Office Depot. You can go work 14 hours a day and bust your butt, and at the end of the day, all that extra money you made just goes straight to the top. It does. They're going to send you $10,000 more signage, and it doesn't translate into local value at all. So our local money is being funneled up through these major corporations. So my big ask, small ask, just shop local, refer a friend.
All right, thank you. Let's give Matt another round of applause.